All right, man. Welcome to today's episode of Strong Men, Strong Marriages. Got a special guest for you today, a special episode. So there's a friend of mine, Bobby Hulme-Lippert. So we got to meet at a group we're both a part of called Front Row Dads. Really cool group. Check them out. We've both really enjoyed it. But we met in an event a year ago, actually, and then kind of reconnected this year and had this sort of semi-planned a year ago, but finally getting to it now. So
Yes.
yeah, good to have you, Bobby. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks, Mike. Excited for it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Great. So yeah, if you could just kind of give us a quick bio, kind of, and then just kind of tell us your story, kind of what you were up to, and kind of what you're up to now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm originally from Ohio and jumped into headed down to college in North Carolina where I did Army ROTC as part of college. So I have this military piece in my background, and it was in that space that God first called me into ministry. And so for a long time, out of college, did some seminary, obviously. I was a pastor. I was a pastor. I was an Army chaplain a little bit in there as well, and loved serving congregations in Atlanta, Georgia, and Richmond, Virginia, and the Austin, Texas area where I currently live now. And through all that, have been married to my wife, Michelle, this year, 20 years
Oh, wow.
on the dot, which is really cool. Two boys, 8 and 4, and they're just a huge blessing. And but a couple 2 3 years ago started to sense some things welling up within myself, where I started asking a lot of questions about if God might be calling me in a different way or a new way or the same way but in a different approach. And so I am happy to get into that. But long story short, I moved from a long season, almost 2 decades of pastoring, some Army chaplaincy, into leadership coaching. And sometimes the way I describe it is almost like I left home, a home I'd come to know and love. I've been a leader in the church since my teenage years. I left home, not in the terms of leaving my faith, but left a version of home, always leadership within the church, to discover a deeper and truer version of home that God was calling me into. And so it's been a great journey, and excited to share even a glimpse of it here.
Yeah, awesome. So, a couple of questions on that. So, you mentioned a few times, and you've been involved as a pastor and in ministry, and think it's something that I know I kind of question, wonder about sometimes, and I'm sure some of the guys listening, like you mentioned several times, like, yeah, I feel God calling me to this, I feel God calling me here, so how do you feel like you pick up on that, like that communication from God as far as like, you say, yeah, I kind of felt called in a different direction for my work. What were your clues? Or like, how did you pick up on that?
That's a great question. And I think there are numerous avenues we could go down because I think God is wonderfully creative and sometimes probing and sometimes gentle and sometimes over the head with the way these moments happen. For me, it emerged through two significant pain points. That's how it started, at least. One was late 2019 when my mom died of brain cancer. And then March of 2020, COVID reality starts to unfold. And both of these really shook my soul at a different level, even though I've been preaching and teaching and caring for people in the hardest valley moments of life. This just struck differently as I was like, wow, there are no guarantees about any one day being here
Hmm.
and the gift we've been given in this life. And so I just was starting to ask these soul level questions. God, what am I supposed to be doing? Is this it? Is it something else? And so it started with a hard thing,
Hmm.
a death, and then the situation that we all experience with COVID. And I just let these questions percolate. And I often find that the tragedy, hardship, loss of a job, a break, something can raise these questions up in a fresh way. Doesn't mean God's going to lead you in a totally different path, but often it does mean God's inviting some kind of new birth. And so I find those things that we don't choose them often one space. The other one is that as I was discerning, am I called to be a pastor or called into a different kind of space where my gifts might come out? I just noticed a growing and persistent tiredness that wasn't burnout.
Hmm.
And it wasn't the kind that a vacation or even a retreat um, was necessarily helping diminish. And I realized that the way I put it is that the ache was an invitation. This sense that I'm tired, but I'm not burned out. I have energy for certain things. I started to discover that the Holy Spirit was calling me towards where that energy, that creative energy was, and away from where I was experiencing kind of a regular tiredness and even overwhelm. And I can get more specific, but that's a couple things I'd go toward.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, that's helpful. Um, yeah, I think that's been kind of thinking back on my experiences too. Yeah, sometimes you have that big whatever, something bad happened. And
Yeah,
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 it can spring you into, well, yeah, it's like what scriptures talk about, right? Like God can turn what was planned for evil into good. That's kind of the theme, right?
absolutely.
Um, Cool. So you mentioned that now you're doing leadership coaching. So what does that mean? Like, what is that exactly?
Yes. Well, I when I say leadership coaching, I should probably start with my definition of leadership I get from my military days, where they trained us leadership is influence. You can have bad influence, good influence, bad leadership, good leadership. But leadership is influence. And everybody has a sphere of influence, a sphere in which they have a genuine impact on how things unfold. And so I have a broad definition of leadership. Inevitably, the folks I have been, not say inevitably, but primarily the folks I've been serving are mid-career professionals who who sense they may be at an inflection point of some sort. They want to deepen their sense of purpose or impact or both in their work and even their broader life or community. And they're just starting to wonder if the path they've been on is the one, even if they've known success and accolades and appreciation, if it's the one they need to stay on, or is something else emerging. And so I often meet people at that inflection point and walk this journey that I sometimes talk about as the intersection of soul and strategy.
Hmm.
And we really walk that kind of a wilderness terrain together and discover what new birth is emerging for them.
Yeah, cool. So, yeah, like maybe give us an example of somebody that you're able to go through. Kind of what was their journey? Is it keep
Sure.
anonymity as much as they want or whatever too. But
Yes. I one of the folks I worked with earlier this year, and we walked this journey together. He came to me and just said, "Look, I've had a great career so far in this one world of my expertise, and I'm good at it, and I'm affirmed for it. And I've got a job offer on the table at like one of the premier places for just, I'm going to get an office that's going to be great and get to oversee a team and security. This is good." And I keep wondering if I might branch out on my own with something that I've wondered about for a long time. I've got this real interest to offer my gifts, my architectural gifts, really, in this other kind of space, a little more creative, a little more unknown. And so it was a classic career decision kind
mhm.
of question: this way or that way, this timing or another timing. And we lived with this question for the first 3 or 4 months of what was about a 6 months journey. And during that time, the really beautiful part was that we got to unpack sort of really who he is.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people come in saying, "Okay, how am I going to decide this? What's
Right.
next? I need a map." And what I love is backing up and say, "Whoa, who are you again?" and really discovering the beauty of that. And what are you? I call them your holy values, your sacred values. What are the parts that when those are aflame like logs on a fire, you are just alive? And it was so cool to to see this guy re-anchor into himself and some of his core values, which included actually adventure
Mm,
and a sense of risk taking for something important and some other pieces and map a journey to where he really actually chose this as the time where he began his new thing. And as an aside, but also central, I find everybody I work with has sort of a key metaphor or two that they start speaking in. In his case, he often was referring to skiing. He loves skiing.
mm,
And so the journey that we built for him was around taking the next gate
mm,
down the black and what, and that doesn't work for everybody. But each client ends up speaking some kind of metaphor that we look to harness as how the journey really gets mapped meaningfully
mm.
in a way that lands for them. So it was cool. It was rewarding for both of us to walk this significant season.
Yeah, cool. What did he end up choosing?
Yeah. Okay. So he went with the new endeavor and um, helping folks build really actually thoughtful, custom, not just houses but homes
Mm,
in a
yep.
way that his craft can come out and help people express a sense of warmth, of hospitality. Um,
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, kind of your process starts with that finding yourself, and kind of when you were posing that question, I was thinking to myself, well, I think like the core of that, is a son of God, right? That's kind of the bottom line. But then, but yeah, and then you're just trying to figure out like what sets that person on fire was your terminology. So like you mentioned venture for this particular guy. What are some other things that people tend to kind of resonate with or that sort of
yeah. Well, let me. Yeah, you're totally right. Who are you at a fundamental level is always answered in that, oh, you're a child of God. And I think of Jesus and his baptism, that his beginning of ministry was this baptism, this fundamental, gracious, beautiful affirmation. This is my child in whom I am well pleased.
mm, yeah,
And we as children of our God are found in that same declaration. Oh, this is my child, this is my son, this is my daughter in whom I am well pleased. And honestly, I find a lot of coaching involves helping people own, I won't say own, receive that grace for themselves.
sure. Yeah.
Yes, we are specific in terms of our unique gifts and the ways those come out, but even at a deeper level, believing in those gifts and receiving them for all their worth starts with that foundation. Oh, I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as far as just the way I think of values, there is a David Stendhal Rost is a monk who once said, what if the antidote to exhaustion is not rest? Might be. What if the antidote to exhaustion is wholeheartedness? And what he was putting forth is that when we discover the things God has called us toward and for, and we offer that wholeheartedness, it may be hard, it may be challenging, it may be unknown, but we know this is it. We come alive. And yeah, we need rest. We need 1 in 7. We need days of rest. We need seasons of Sabbath. Absolutely. But he says, what if the fundamental antidote to exhaustion is wholeheartedness? And so I think when I talk about core values and things that help people really discover a new season of aliveness, what they're coming home to is a deep sense of wholeheartedness
Mm,
and living in alignment with what they really do value.
yeah. Yeah. So like for this gentleman you were mentioning, it was like, okay, yeah, this wholeheartedness, what I can put. And I guess the way I'm kind of thinking of that as you say it is, you know, something you can put your whole heart into.
Mm-hmm,
Or
mm-hmm.
is it more like now I feel like my heart is whole or complete because I'm like involved in this thing or like both of those?
I think actually both directions just are true. I think of this particular client, just to use a little more tangible example, a concrete example. Okay, adventure was one of his core values just in life and work. Mountains were a core value, and by that,
Hmm.
both literally the space where he most fully and freely experiences the gift of God's creation and God's grace, but also as a metaphor, the rock that is God, who is the foundation of his
Hmm.
faith, and that came into play with taking this risk towards a season of entrepreneurship, and not the comfortable, good, and perfectly, may have been a great decision in another season of life, this other job,
Hmm.
but this for him was a season where it was like, what, that I just sense God calling me to trust this rock, this foundation, um, despite what I worry people may say or not say or whatever. And so, that was just another angle on this. And then family was a core value of his, and we and impact how each direction would really serve or not serve, and what that would look like, that value of family. So different textures for different folks, but that was some of the texture of his.
Yeah, cool. Um, so yeah, so the process is kind of yeah, connecting with that sense of identity, and then what brings you joy, what makes you feel alive, and then kind of with the different gifts that you have or been given, kind of using those in ways that you feel like benefit the world and kind of balance your other values, family, and that sort of thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. I sometimes I more and more just have overtly called it this because it really is the heartbeat of it. I call it a homecoming journey, to be
Mm,
honest. We are, it, I find so many of us get so busy with our work and our lives. I very much included, that it almost becomes, let's say, easy, but natural to sort of become the work itself. In my case, there was a season I became the minister robe. I became all the things you would expect from a good minister. Whatever people needed, I would people please, cover down, show up, do all the right things, just like just a minister is supposed to do. I would say all the right things in the way a minister should say them. I had become the robe, and I had lost Bobby.
mm,
And God had called Bobby, imperfect Bobby, creative Bobby, unique Bobby. God had called Bobby. And I had become sort of the template that people lay out for ministerial success. I see other people become the suit. They become the successful job in all the ways they know they're supposed to be. And eventually that becomes exhausting to be something you're not.
sure.
To try to live up to a story or a template or a formula that actually doesn't fit, and you're just trying to, again, live up. Homecoming's about coming home to yourself and God, home to Bobby, to your unique gifts in the body of Christ, home to some things that you've forgotten about maybe since childhood, but are, beautiful expressions of the light of Christ through you. And it's about stepping towards a vision that you feel deeply at home about. When I
Mm,
work on visioning, it's not about, okay, I want to make this kind of money and this kind of house and all the things that society says a great vision should have. It's, whoa, whoa,
right.
whoa, what's home? How's God painting a vision that you're deeply at home with?
Mm,
Um, so homecoming becomes the name of the journey.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that, and so this is gonna people are gonna be hearing this right at the beginning of the year, right around the
Yeah.
beginning of the year, and so very common, right? And I just did an exercise like this with another thing I'm doing. It's like, okay, what's your 10-year vision, right?
Yeah.
Like, and he had those specific questions, like how much money are you making? Like, and not those are bad questions to
No,
ask,
not at all.
but but yeah, kind of as I was thinking through that, it's like. I like how you're saying it, like what feels like what feels like home. And just like one of the things that's always resonated with me is just having someplace on the beach. Like having my office there and
Mm.
just like walking with clients on the beach is like that's part of it. And so yeah, I'm glad you kind of pointed that out because there's um, yeah, like that. That's been like something that's been with me for a long time. So feels like,
Mike, I love that you said that. Let me say two things. One, when I started to really come home to myself, one of the things that came back to me was as a child how much I climbed trees and I
mm,
was in nature and I just joyed in God's creation and my strength and flexibility. And one of the ways that's found expression in my current work is actually at least for local clients, we do hiking trails together. You
yeah,
mentioned walking on the beach. I mean, oh, and honestly, I think God does a lot of the work through the gift of creation that a lot of
totally.
us just don't breathe a lot in our hustle and bustle. Um, the other thing I did this workshop a month ago with a group of executives on some of their own visioning and goals, and it was, but I did something different, and it wasn't totally planned until the day before. I thought, oh, this might help open us a little bit. And I said I started by having them say they didn't know each other, most of them, name, industry, and then what's a song, just one song that comes to mind that's
Mm,
somehow representative of your childhood years.
mm,
And it blew my mind how that question, everyone says their professional thing, their name, and then they go
yeah,
and they settle in and they smile. It changed the entire couple hours.
yeah,
It changed even the tenor of how they thought about vision
sure.
because they were at a different spot. And so I do think this once we enter into the space, realize how beautiful and important it can be.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, because the even because if anybody's watching this, like you can kind of see Bobby's body language kind of shift between those two, and you can sort of feel it too. Um, Because yeah, when you're like, oh, and I feel like even when I do it myself, like I feel myself kind of sit up taller and just like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, here's my goal, and I'm gonna make this much money, and like, even a different tone of voice and all that. But then if you're like, yeah, like yeah, what's a song that you like, or what reminds you of your childhood? What'd you like as a kid? Like, you just kind of, yeah, you relax down, you're just, yeah, you smile, you soften up. Um, I think too, there's this as guys, we kind of think, well, it's our job to be like hardcore, hard, right? Be strong, right? Even like that's my name of my podcast, right? Strong men, strong marriages. But I think that's part of it. But also, the at this conference we just went to, he used this phrase a lot that I really liked. He said, like a strong back and open heart, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, we still want to be strong and solid, right? And like have that heart that's open and loving and can give love and receive love. And I think sometimes we
Mm.
have maybe a strong back and like a closed front, like we try to armor up, right? Versus um, being open and yeah, accessing that childhood like joy and those kind of things.
Yes. Can I ask, have you walked with clients on the beach? That's that something that
No,
has
I
happened?
haven't yet. I haven't yet.
Okay.
So my my office right now is not it wouldn't it's not by the beach. So um,
Okay. Okay.
but yeah, I mean maybe that's it. Maybe that's it for the new year. It's been on my mind
Mhm.
for a long time. So because I think there's just something so the reason I went into psychiatry, right, I feel like it's the field where you can help people with their entire life, right? Like you've got
Mhm.
the medical training, right? So you understand your body and how your body works, right? And your brain and the
Yeah.
the physical element. And then the mental side, how your thoughts influence everything you're doing. And then, the emotional side and relationship element, that's kind of what I've been focusing on here more. Um, but then like bringing in that spiritual element, like we're talking about of so I mean, I think that's what I'm wanting to do and what um, yeah, I mean, you weren't here to coach me, but I'm kind of like making you do it a little bit. It's opening my thoughts up a little bit to it. 'Cause yeah, I mean, that's why I went into
Yeah.
this. And Yeah, and I think, yeah, just being out and in nature and having clients where I can, where we talk about all the, like each of those elements, right? Body, mind, heart, and spirit. And we're kind of trying
Yeah.
to optimize across those areas and, using all the different tools that, we've learned along the way with kind of that foundation in, uh, you know, connecting to God is the
Mm-hmm.
main foundation. So, um, yeah. That's my home as we're talking about that. So now it's like, how do
Yes.
we kind of shift into that? So the strategy part. So the soul part,
Abs.
I feel like as we're
Uh-huh.
talking, like that's been good. I'm feeling that. So then it's the strategy part of, you know, moving into that a little bit.
Yes. But that's beautiful. And one thing I'll say is I do think we're both of us are in the kind of work that's often helping people connect better to themselves, to God, to their
Yep.
work, to their family. I mean, the connection and there's something about nature that is
Yeah.
already so deeply, invisibly, beautifully connected. And I think that does somehow get communicated and even helps our own connections
Yeah.
when we do this work out there. So anyway, I'll be curious to hear what unfolds
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll
in
let you
that
know. I'll
side of
let you
things for
know.
you.
I'll let you know. Um, Well, let's see. Yeah, something else was coming to mind about the conference with that, but I don't know. Maybe we'll come back to it. Um, but anyway, so well, you guys have gotten kind of unfortunately kind of coming to the end of our time here, but so you guys have got a kind of a little mini thing, and maybe I'll be connecting with Bobby here a little more coming up to like make this vision for me to come into reality. Um, Oh, I remember what I was going to say. At the conference, he was talking
Yeah.
about like that adventure, right? Having adventures and talking
Yes.
about like, and that was like a big takeaway for me. Like, man, like we are not in nature at all, like hardly at all from
Yeah.
in our family, right? And that's on me and on all of us. We've gotten too into screens as our well, like we just need to relax. Right? So let's just like be on screens for a while. And look, it is sort of relaxing and yeah, I think we're missing out. So anyway, yeah, getting into nature, I think is valuable.
Yes. We I so echo that. And I've gotten into the habit of if I can work outside at a coffee shop and they've got outdoor seating and it's a pleasant
Mm,
day, I air towards that. I just something
yeah.
opens. We've noticed with parenting, our boys 8 and 4, we've started doing camping trips as a family. We're not camping types who know all the things. I
Yep.
didn't grow up doing this. But in the last year, we've just like, all right, we're doing a tent, we're going and we're gonna whatever. And my gosh, it just within the first half hour, they just start to relax into a different
hmm
kind of playful version of themselves. And it is just such a lesson for us as parents to be like, okay, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is beautiful to see them just be them in this spirited, adventurous way. And it seems to really happen when we just get outside. So
Yeah.
bottom line, can't go wrong in 2025. Getting out there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was cool. The presenter was saying like it was like three steps. Step one, get in nature. Step two, let nature do its work. Like I forget what step three was, but basically the
Yeah.
the the message was like just be there and like nature will take care of it. Now, like as believers, right, we kind of see that more as no, like that's being in God's creation, right? And when you're accessing that versus a screen that's,
Mm-hmm.
not exactly, it kind of is God's creation, but like being out is different. You can connect that to that
Mm-hmm.
easier. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, anyway, awesome time together. Thank you, Bye, for being on. So yeah, if someone is like, yeah, like I am at that, and check me if I'm wrong here, but kind of if someone's like, like yeah, hearing this talk today, I'm not quite sure. I'm like with my job, I'm maybe things could be different, or I've kind of got a vision. I'm not quite sure how to get it. I think that's kind of who you're looking to help, but tell me if I'm off on that.
Yes, almost always there's some kind of transition point, often mid-career. Sometimes it's been kind of nearing retirement, but
Mhm.
generally those kind of spaces that feel like
Yeah,
there might be a transition at hand. Yeah.
cool. Okay. So yeah, I feel like there's that transition spot. Yeah, how do they connect with you?
Yeah, two places. The main one's my website, bhl.coach. Those are my initials, Bobby Hulme-Lippert, bhl.coach. And all the info's there. Easy way to get on my newsletter if you just kind of want little insights along these lines to follow along with. I also do a weekly Substack where I write pieces on small stories about big things. In fact, just wrote the book on it,
Oh,
which
cool.
was a fun journey. But I put out news stories every week, small stories about big things, and love interacting with folks over those and kind of getting to hear other people's stories. So it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right, cool. So bhl.coach, that easy to remember. It'll also be in the show notes, and those of you that are on the email list, it'll be in the email. If you're not on the email list, head over to strongmen.io and get on my email list. And again, bhl.coach for to check Bobby's work out more. All right. Well, thanks so much, Bobby. Any final words for us here today?
I like the insight from the theologian Howard Thurman. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs are people who've come alive.
Mhm.
As Christians, I think we understand that as people enlivened by the Holy Spirit and just the beautiful, creative ways as we live into our part of the body of Christ.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, send me that. I'll put that in the email for when I send it out. All right, guys. Well, hey, great episode today, and yeah, stay strong in God, men, and we will see you next episode.
So thanks, Mike.